I was never a fan of old abandoned places, especially not at night. But when my friends Sarah and Ben suggested we explore the abandoned asylum on the outskirts of town, I reluctantly agreed. It was just supposed to be an adventure, something exciting to do on a Friday night. As we approached the looming, decrepit building, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The air grew cold, and a heavy silence hung around us like a shroud. The asylum had been abandoned for decades, and overgrown vines and broken windows gave it an eerie appearance. We entered cautiously, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The place smelled musty, like a mix of decay and old medical equipment. It sent shivers down my spine. We made our way through the labyrinth hallways, our footsteps echoing eerily. I tried to brush off my unease and be the brave one in the group. Sarah and Ben seemed to be enjoying the adventure, their laughter echoing through the halls. As we explored deeper, we stumbled upon a room that sent a chill down my spine. It was filled with old medical instruments, rusted and covered in dust. It looked like a scene from a horror movie. "Check this out," Ben said, holding up an old leather-bound journal. It was filled with handwritten notes and diagrams. The handwriting was shaky and illegible in places, as if the author had been in a hurry. We flipped through the pages, and I couldn't help but feel like we were invading someone's personal space. The journal mentioned experiments and treatments, and it was impossible to make sense of the cryptic entries. As we continued exploring, strange things started happening. Shadows moved in the corners of our vision, and the temperature dropped significantly. I could see my breath, even though it was a mild evening. "Did you see that?" Sarah asked, her voice quivering. She pointed to a doorway where a shadowy figure seemed to dart out of sight. I felt a knot in my stomach, but I wanted to keep up the facade of bravery. "Probably just our imagination," I said, though I didn't believe it myself. We pressed on, but the unease only intensified. We heard faint whispers, unintelligible but definitely there. It felt like the walls were closing in on us. That's when we found a door that led to a narrow, winding staircase. Against my better judgment, we decided to climb it, our flashlight casting eerie shadows on the walls. The stairs seemed to go on forever, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were descending into something darker. Finally, we reached the basement, and what we found there will haunt me forever. In the center of the room was a makeshift altar, candles flickering around it. On the walls there were strange symbols drawn in what looked like blood. The air was thick with an oppressive energy. "We need to leave now," I yelled, panic overtaking me. But as we turned to run, the door slammed shut with a deafening crash. We were trapped, and the candles went out, plunging us into complete darkness. That's when I heard it. The sound of heavy, labored breathing coming from all around us. The whispers grew louder, and I could make out words that sent shivers down my spine. The shadows in the room began to move, taking on sinister forms. I felt icy fingers graze my skin, and I knew we were not alone. Whatever had been trapped in that forsaken place was now with us. I fumbled for my flashlight, desperate to see what was around us, but it wouldn't turn on. It was as if the darkness itself had taken it. We huddled together, paralyzed by fear, as the room seemed to close in on us. The whispers grew louder, and the breathing more malevolent. Just when I thought we were doomed, the door burst open, and we stumbled out into the night. We didn't look back, didn't stop running, until we were far from that accursed place. To this day, I can't explain what happened in that abandoned asylum, but I know one thing for sure. It was a terror beyond anything I'd ever imagined, a nightmare that still haunts my every waking moment.
It was a stormy night, and I was driving alone on a desolate highway surrounded by nothing but dense woods. Rain poured from the sky in torrents, and the wind howled like a banshee. My headlights cut through the darkness, revealing the endless road ahead. As I drove, a feeling of unease washed over me. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but something was wrong. The forest seemed to press in on the road, and the shadows danced ominously at the edge of my vision. I turned on the radio, hoping for some distraction from the eerie atmosphere, but all I got was static. I tried station after station, but there was nothing but that relentless, crackling static. My heart raced as I continued down the highway. the feeling of dread growing stronger with each passing mile. I wished I had never taken this route, but it was the only way home. Then, up ahead, I saw something in the middle of the road. It looked like a person, standing perfectly still in the pouring rain. I slowed down, my headlights revealing a figure in a tattered, rain-soaked coat. I hesitated for a moment, debating whether to stop and help. But something about the situation felt off. The figure didn't move, didn't turn to face me. It just stood there like a statue. As I got closer, my headlights illuminated the figure's face, or what should have been a face. Instead, there was nothing. No eyes, no mouth, just a featureless expanse of skin. My blood turned to ice as I slammed on the brakes. The figure, still faceless, slowly raised its arm and pointed down the road, in the direction I had been heading. A chill ran down my spine, and I knew I had to get out of there. I swerved around the figure and hit the gas, leaving it behind in the pouring rain. My heart pounded in my chest as I glanced in the rearview mirror, but the figure was gone, vanished into the darkness. The static on the radio continued, louder now, like a relentless scream. I couldn't take it anymore, so I reached for the radio and turned it off. The sudden silence was deafening, and I was left alone with my racing thoughts. I drove for what felt like hours, my nerves on edge, until I finally reached a small town. I pulled into a gas station, relieved to be out of the storm and away from that faceless figure. I parked the car and took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. But then I heard it, the faint sound of static coming from the radio, which I had turned off. I looked at the radio in disbelief. It was still off, yet the static grew louder and more frantic. And then a voice emerged from the chaos, a voice that sent shivers down my spine. "Turn around," it whispered, over and over again. "Turn around." I yanked the keys from the ignition and bolted from the car. I couldn't explain what was happening, but I knew I had to get away. I found shelter in a nearby diner, where I sat trembling, trying to make sense of the night's horrors. The storm raged on outside, but I was safe, at least for now. To this day, I don't know what I encountered on that desolate highway, but I'll never forget the faceless figure and the chilling voice on the radio, urging me to turn around. And I can't help but wonder what would have happened if I had listened.